Congratulations on purchasing Content Marketing, How to Get 12 Months Worth of Ideas for Your Blog in 1 Hour, and Start Converting Your Audience into Paying Customers. And thank you for doing so. The title of this book makes a very big claim, but don't worry, it isn't hyperbolic or just a marketing ploy. You will find the tools you need to create the ideas you are looking for inside. The catch, however, is that you have to read through the book in order if you hope the system to be effective. As such, if you skip ahead, you'll find tips for your content generation plan that you won't have any real idea how to use effectively. While you might still be tempted to jump ahead, the results you get if you attempt to muddle through will be nowhere near as effective as they might otherwise be. So, do yourself a favor and take a deep breath. Slow things down for the hour or so it will take you to make it through this book, and take what you are reading to heart, as it has the very real potential to increase your conversions significantly. After all, who couldn't use a little extra cash in their pocket? While it may be easier to fill up your hard drive with lists of potential topic ideas and bookmark plenty of sites that teach you how to come up with your own topics, and it may even satisfy your itch to be productive over time. However, the truth of the matter is that all of these preparations aren't going to really do you any good when you find yourself staring at a blank screen with no idea what to write. Yes, the blinking cursor on a blank screen is the blogger's nemesis, and all these so-called preparations will do little to get you over this subtle but deadly hump. The reason for this is likely not you don't have ideas of content, it's that you don't have a reliable system in place for meeting the hectic schedule that regularly posting quality content requires, which is why you need to create a content plan for your blog that works for you. While you might feel as though you don't need a content plan for your blog, the fact of the matter is that almost any blogger can streamline their process through the use of one, though it will be especially useful if you feel as though you never have an idea about what to write and can never find the time to plan things out ahead of time. If it seems as though you are always struggling to fill the need for content with no real thought or plan as to how things fit together, then a good plan will help you utilize your blog to its full potential. Likewise, if you find yourself writing content in an effort to chase what you feel to be current trends, then you can use a plan to shape your posts into a more coherent whole. If your work feels like a bunch of random pieces smashed together, then users are unlikely to follow your work if they don't feel as though all of it applies to them. Creating a content plan for your blog will ensure that you generate enough through lines that users feel certain that the content you will be generating in the future will be just as useful and cohesive as what you did in the past. The same thing goes for content that doesn't clearly serve a purpose. That is not to say that every piece of content you create should be sales-focused, and this could not be further from the truth. Content that entertains and informs is vital to a steady conversion rate, as you want to give users as many different opportunities to visit your site as possible. However, each piece of content you create should be written with a clear purpose in mind, and a content plan for your blog will help you ensure that this is always the case. This book will help you treat the underlying problem that leads to inferior content by helping you to create the right type of plan for your blog, which will, in turn, make it possible for you to create a virtually endless list of content ideas in a single sitting. Why you need a content plan for your blog. While there are a plethora of benefits when it comes to moving forward with a clear plan, some are going to be more tangible than others, and they serve as a good baseline for what you can expect to get out of the process, as long as you put in the work and stick to the plan after the fact. Improved SEO. First and foremost, the greater the volume of content you publish, the more pages you will have in your site with various keywords, assuming you're taking full advantage of key phrases to begin with. You will also approach things from the other direction by ensuring that the content you do create is of a generally high quality than would otherwise be the case. This will greatly increase the odds of other blogs in your niche linking to the content in question, which creates what is known as a backlink. These days, Google search results prioritize sites with a high number of backlinks because it tends to be a reliable metric for overall quality. Improve traffic. The greater the amount of high-quality content that you produce by following a content plan for your blog, the more traffic you can hope to ultimately push towards your site. Regardless of how you plan to monetize your blog via conversions, You can't expect your plan to succeed without traffic. Additionally, if you are going down the affiliate marketing route, the greater the traffic, the better the potential affiliate deals you can get from merchants. Sponsored ads. While anyone can turn on AdSense on their site and make a small profit from their page views, clicks, and what have you, if your traffic reaches a significant number, then you can reach out to actual companies in hopes of securing an advertising deal. If you become a common enough name in your niche, then they may even come to you. Improve sales. A focused content marketing strategy backed up by a reliable plan is virtually guaranteed to raise sales. After all, that's what it is designed to do. The simple fact is that people are more willing to buy things from people they have a positive impression of, and you're guaranteed to give off a better impression with quality content that happens to contain a sales opportunity, as opposed to content that feels rushed out or disjointed, as this will make it feel as though your only goal is to increase sales. The same thing goes with your email subscriber list, which opens up an additional potential revenue stream as well. The logic here is that if users enjoy the content on your site reliably, then they're going to be more likely to opt into your email service, which will provide you with yet another opportunity to sell them something, in moderation, of course. Generally speaking, you're going to want to keep the sales pitch portion of your email to 20% or less if you hope to see your open rates maintain a reasonable level. Reach a wider audience. If you make a habit of creating content that is actively useful to your users, then they are far more likely to pass that information along to others than would otherwise be the case. While it was once perfectly acceptable to send everything to everyone, people curate personal recommendations far more closely these days, which means that you need to ensure your content is on point if you hope to make the cut. Build trust in your audience. Creating quality content does more than give your readers a reason to come back time and again. It also shows that you really know what you're talking about when it comes to the specific niche you are dealing with. This knowledge has a transitive property that will naturally make regular readers more likely to trust what you have to say when it comes to the niche in question, without having to worry about figuring it out for themselves. You can certainly use this to your advantage when it comes to promoting products. Just keep in mind that if you recommend something that is of poor quality, you risk breaking trust with your readers, which is very difficult, if not completely impossible, to win back. Take your recommendations seriously, and your readers will listen when you give out your seal of approval on a specific product or service. On the other hand, regularly creating quality content is a great way to ensure that you stay in the minds of those in your niche who are not yet quite ready to buy, will be ready eventually. When it does come time for them to buy, however, you'll have a very strong chance of being their first choice, as they will have already built up a relationship in their mind, which naturally makes you more trustworthy than any other option. Finally, if you consistently put out quality content in your niche thanks to your content plan for your blog, then eventually readers will start to think of you as an expert, which will make them view you as the go-to source for whatever it is your niche is focused on. What to expect? In the following chapters, you will learn everything you need to know in order to create your own content plan for your blog that is both personalized and extremely effective. First, you'll learn how to define the parameters that you're working with, while also learning how to ensure your content has a unique point of view as well. Next, you'll learn a three-pronged approach to generating content ideas, which is sure to help you create quality content for years to come. From there, you'll learn all about creating your content in such a way that readers can't help but stick with you until the very end, while also learning how to hone your own unique voice for the best results possible. Finally, you will learn a wide variety of promotional strategies that you can implement to ensure as many people see the content you create as possible. Finally, you'll learn how to put it all together in order to ensure that your content plan for your blog is as effective and easy to follow as possible. There are plenty of books on this subject on the market. Thanks again for choosing this one. Every effort was made to ensure it is full of as much useful information as possible. Please enjoy. Determine your parameters. Determining the parameters of the content that you'll cover in your blog is a crucial first step when it comes to creating content effectively, because without knowing what your limits are, it becomes difficult to know the direction you wish to take your content in. Failing to do so will lead to content that is all over the place and wishy-washy, traits that are sure to see readers running the other direction. Know your niche. When it comes to defining current parameters, the first thing you're going to want to do is to determine the niche you're marketing towards with your blog, if you haven't done so already. Choosing a specialized niche is a great way to help yourself stick out from the crowd, and in so doing, making your content marketing that much more profitable in the long run. It is important to do some research and choose wisely, however, as not all niches are created equal, and some are sure to be far more profitable than others. This decision requires some serious thought, as once you go through the trouble of branding your niche, it can be very difficult to change it after the fact. Assuming you already have a way to profit from your site in mind, this is likely where you'll want to start your search. When choosing a niche, it is important to find something that is specific enough to allow for easily target content, while not get so hyper-specialized that you cut out parts of the market that you could otherwise successfully market to. For example, if you go too broad and end up with the category of men, then you end up with content that is too generalized to appeal to anyone. While if you go too far in the other direction and target men between 30 and 32 who are homeowners, then you were likely limiting yourself unnecessarily, and thus missing out on potential customers in the process. As such, the trick is finding a happy medium when it comes to your target audience, while at the same time ensuring that the niche you have found is something that you'll be able to stick with reliably for the foreseeable future. Content marketing is a marathon, not a sprint, which means you need to be in it for the long haul if you hope to find success. Think about the long term, and if anything about your niche strikes you as unfortunate, you will likely want to try again. Once you have a specific demographic in mind, the next thing you're going to want to spend some time thinking about is the problems that the demographic faces on a regular basis. Additionally, you're going to want to consider the aspirations and desires that they have, and the issues that might confront them when it comes to making their dreams a reality. Once you've done a bit of brainstorming, you want to make a list of potential problems that your target audience likely faces on a regular basis, as well as the types of searches they're likely to try in order to fix them. If the problems you come up with end up not returning very many results, then they likely aren't problems anyone is all that concerned with solving, which means you'll want to go back to the drawing board and start again. Finally, once you have landed on several different problems that your target audience is interested in solving, you will then need to determine if they're willing to pay to solve the problem in question, as otherwise it won't be worth the time and effort involved to market content when it won't lead to a measurable number of sales. A great way to go about doing so is by visiting adwords.google.com and looking into the keyword planning tool. This will make it possible for you to view the overall results of search results by keyword, which will show how often the keyword was searched for month to month to ensure you're jumping on a new trend. This is crucial, as you don't want to accidentally end up baking a niche that is already peaked in popularity, as this will lead to a decreasing user base regardless of the quality of your content. The Trend tool by Google is extremely useful in this instance, as it shows the number of times that the key phrase was used in a given month to ensure that you pick one that is only on the rise. Your goal should be to find a niche whose popularity is on the rise, but not one that is so popular that you won't be able to find a way to get your foot in the door. First and foremost, this means considering various unique spins you could put on the niche to ensure you're doing more than simply creating the same type of content that everyone else who's working in the niche is currently creating. From there, you want to take to Google to ensure that the niche is open enough for your particular take on the topic. When searching around the niche, you're going to want to see as many different URLs on the first page of Google as possible. If they are limited to only 3 or 4 different sites, then you'll likely have a hard time breaking through using keywords and possibly the niche in question. Finally, keep in mind that the purpose of this exercise is to help you to determine parameters of your blog, which means you will need to ensure you land on a topic that you will be able to write about, not just sporadically, but on a regular basis. Longevity is the key to success in this instance, and if you're already having second thoughts, then that is far from a good sign. Create transformative content. When it comes to creating content that really helps to promote your goals, you should never write anything just to ensure you have content for a given day. Instead, you're going to want to approach every piece you write as a transformative agent of change. Focusing on creating content that transforms your readers by progressing both you and them towards your respective goals. To do so, you want to start by focusing on the mental state you expect them to be in when they track down your content, as well as the state you will want them to be in when they have finished with your content. For starters, you want to consider what your readers are experiencing, what they're feeling, and what thoughts they're having. If you're having trouble picturing each of these, then you can start with the endpoint and work backwards to determine the type of content you will need to produce in order to get them where they need to be. You may find it helpful to think of your content as being split up into baskets. Each different category of content is its own basket, and you could have up to 7 baskets total. These categories or buckets will help to support what you want your blog to say overall. From there, you want to add various topics and subcategories to each basket until they are relatively full. As an example, assume you're trying to run a blog devoted to saving money, with the goal of helping those in their 20s start saving early in hopes of improving their chances of financial success down the road. Your baskets in this instance would likely be things like investing, budgeting, planning for the future, and the like, while your subcategories for investing could include things like cryptocurrency, real estate, and stocks. If you find yourself having a hard time coming up with a full 7 baskets, consider the core value proposition you're putting forth to potential readers and go from there. Chapter 2. Know your target audience. While choosing a niche likely means you have a general target audience in mind, there is likely still far more you can do in order to ensure that the content you are creating is as effective as possible. One efficient way of going about doing so is by creating what are known as reader personas, which make it possible to easily segregate various parts of your target audience in such a way that you can determine things such as their behavioral motivations, purchasing patterns, life cycles, and more. In order to use your reader personas as effectively as possible, you're going to need to start gathering as much data about your users as you possibly can without being overly intrusive. First things first, this means looking back at your page views over the preceding month or so and see what types of patterns you can see. It is important to be extremely precise while going through this process, as you'll want to keep an eye out for areas where you can naturally segment your audience into mutually exclusive groups. Things like location, age, and gender are all fine starting places, but you will need to find more actionable characteristics if you want your customer personas to be as effective as possible. Questions you should ask of your users include things like, what about their lifestyle impacts their buying choices? Who makes the decision in the households my users live in? What might cause them to start using the competition instead? What are their tastes and preferences? What are their goals and dreams? What are their precise demographics? In order to answer these questions with any degree of certainty, the first thing you will need to do is determine what details you already have and which you are still in need of. Closing the gaps in your user data can be done by running a survey for new users that will make it possible to track down these details as quickly as you can realistically manage. If you still find yourself missing key demographic information, then you may find better luck making a plea on your blog to your more dedicated users or reaching out in a group email if you are able, explaining that you are trying to produce more relevant content and ask them for the information in question. The rate of success with this approach is likely going to vary depending on the level of engagement you have cultivated with your readers. It is also important to reach beyond your core audience in order for this exercise to be successful. Reach out to as many different types of users as you can. Personalize the data. One of the things that makes reader personas so useful is the fact that they can help you to keep in mind that the metrics you are looking at aren't simply numbers on a screen. They represent real people with real goals, dreams, and hopes that you will hopefully be able to capitalize on for your own profit. It will also help to expose clear buying habits, especially when it comes to details like why they might walk away from a purchase that is incomplete. This level of understanding will ultimately help make it easier to generate the type of content that your readers are looking for and will respond positively to. Improve your value judgments. Splitting the reader base at the granular level will make it far easier for you to determine how to split the focus of your content in the most beneficial way possible. As an example, if a portion of your audience is early adopters, then you can likely count on them to always buy the latest and the greatest, regardless of how much an improvement it is over last year's model. With something like this in mind, you will know that going through all of the effort that is put into these types of blog posts is ultimately going to pay off. When parsing your research, it is extremely important that you keep an eye out for groups of readers that are primed to take action in the moment, as they are likely going to be your bread and butter when it comes to turning a profit. True understanding is key. Perhaps more than anything, save a truly great deal, what your readers are ultimately looking for is a feeling that they are understood. It is this driving need that makes customer personas so useful, as it is a great way to convince your readers that you truly understand them, and by determining their likes and dislikes, you will be well on your way to improving your overall engagement levels as well. You can then take this level of understanding and inclusiveness another step further with specialized email newsletters that feature even further levels of personalization, including personalized visual content or blog addressing issues they face on a regular basis. Don't discount negative personas. While positive personas can truly help you take your understanding of your user base to the next level, creating a wide variety of negative personas will also help you understand the skeptical side of the market that you might be able to still bring around to your particular point of view. While there are any number of reasons why this might be the case, the most relevant is going to be the fact that creating content for one segment of your users will naturally alienate another. This means that understanding the limits of what you have to offer will allow you to ensure that you don't overstep the bounds of what your audience is interested in when it comes to trying out new content or reaching for new users. Generally speaking, negative personas can go a long way towards making it easier for you to focus your efforts in the most productive manner possible, just like their positive counterparts. This exercise will also help you determine the segments of the population that you will simply never have a chance with, because their values are at odds with some core aspect of the niche you have chosen. Content marketing matrix. After you feel you have a good understanding of the general ins and outs of your target audience, the next thing you will need to do is organize the information in a useful fashion via what is known as a content marketing matrix. Think about your conversions. When dealing with your reader personas, conversion does not have to mean a sale. It can also mean actions that you are trying to get your audience to take that they are successfully taking. The call to action that you create can then also be a wide variety of things, including social media posts, blog posts, email newsletters, and more. Thus, the call to action that you generate can be things like interacting with your content as opposed to strictly buying something online or following an affiliate link. It doesn't matter what you want them to do. What matters is that you grab their attention first. Think about the point of contact. You can reach your users through inbound leads, third-party contact, and outbound leads, and choosing the right type of channel to communicate with every persona will dramatically increase your odds of generating conversions. Additionally, if you pick the wrong channels, while you will still likely see some success, the rates are typically going to be far lower than what would otherwise be the case. Popular channels for this sort of thing include targeted posts, email, or social media, which can be tricky to deal with as there are so many different platform choices out there. As such, if you plan on going down this route, then you're going to want to focus on those that your users tend to favor the most and leave the rest for someone else. Unless you have someone focusing on social media exclusively, Focusing on too many different outlets will only cause you to spread yourself too thin. While a single point of contact is fine, more than two should be the number you aim for, as this is when things will start getting especially effective. When it comes to choosing an ideal contact method, the first thing you will need to do is consider if the primary point of contact is going to be enough to start the conversation you want to have. Additionally, you will always want to use the cheapest effective point of contact possible, as doing so will mean that you get to use it more frequently than would otherwise be the case. Additionally, it is important to keep in mind that the most effective type of contact is going to be the one that requires the least amount of effort to use overall. The easier the contact is to get started, the greater your odds that it will end up working out in your favor. Never forget your segments. Once you have managed to successfully put a face on your audience, the way in which you want them to act, and how you will contact them, you will then be more prepared to create the type of plan that will ultimately lead towards the type of content that will generate the greatest potential for conversion overall. This content will likely be similar to what you have already been generating, just far more focused overall. At this point, you should be well aware of the types of content that are going to appeal the most to each persona, so all that will be left to do is go about creating it in the way that is as effective as possible. This won't be a one-and-done process either. You will need to continuously monitor the segments that you are aiming to attract to determine how effective the content you are creating actually is among the segments it is supposed to be targeting, taking special care to determine points where the content is strongest, as well as where it is weakest. One of the things that makes this process so successful is that you can continuously tweak the variables you are following to ensure the best results overall. Know what you don't know. While it is important to know what segments of your users like you the most, it is equally important to determine what segments you are just barely holding on to, possibility in spite of yourself. After you have a clear idea of what weaknesses you are looking at, you can get to work trying to do everything in your power to improve your results. Furthermore, it is important to remember that new opportunities to create content channels are always popping up, so remaining vigilant is the key for best results in the long term. Chapter 3. Work to be seen as an authority. When it comes to creating effective content, it is important to think about its effectiveness in both the short and the long term. Short-term effectiveness is going to include what has already been discussed, accurately conveying information that may or may not be directly focused on sales. Long-term effectiveness must also be considered, however, and your long-term goal should be to become seen as an authority in the niche you have chosen. In many situations, the word expert and the word authority are often used interchangeably. This is not the case with sales, however, as being an authority is everything, and being an expert is much worse than simply getting second place. In this case, an expert is someone who knows a lot about a certain niche, while an authority is the person that all of the experts agree is the first stop for information. To put it another way, authorities aren't authorities because they say they are. They are authorities because when they make declarations in regard to their niche of choice, other people listen. The benefits of being seen as an authority should be fairly self-explanatory. When you speak, other people listen. This is because those who have accepted you as an authority are going to naturally assume that you know what you're talking about when you talk about your niche. This should often translate directly into additional conversions as well, when given a little extra push. If you can reach this level of status within your authority, you'll find that you are even able to set the tone for the niche as a whole, thanks to the rabid followers who hang on your every post. Do your homework. The first step to writing content that will help you to see as though you are an authority in your niche is going to be difficult for some people and easy for others, depending on their ability to get online and do the research that being an authority in a chosen niche requires. Put another way, you need to learn enough to know what it is you're talking about in any situation you might find yourself in regarding your niche. Not to worry, This isn't something that is going to take you years to master, as it is perfectly acceptable to focus on a single aspect of your niche to the exclusion of all others. Not only does this have the benefit of ensuring that you will actually get to use the information you are learning at a point in the near future, it will also allow you to differentiate yourself from other authorities in the niche without having to actively go head-to-head with them. Once you do get to work, it is important to do more than simply becoming familiar with the Wikipedia page on the topic. It means going to the sources that you can find connected to that Wikipedia page and then tracking down their sources as well. You will then want to do this again and again and again until you can honestly say that you have left no stone unturned. It will unavoidably require lots of hard work and effort, though the results will certainly pay for themselves in the long run. While you're working your way through this process, you may also find it helpful to create a starter guide as if you were writing for someone who is completely unfamiliar with whatever part of your niche you are working on at becoming an authority in. While putting together a study guide for a topic that you are not yet terribly familiar with might seem like a poor choice, the fact of the matter is that absorbing the complicated topics you are studying and breaking them down in such a way that anyone can understand will help take the content from something you've learned to something you can easily explain, which is what you'll be spending a lot of time doing through your blog. Here, your goal should be more than simply regurgitating existing facts. You're going to also want to consider what you can bring to the discussion as well. If you find that you have opinions about the types of things they are discussing on forums devoted to the topic, then you know you are on the right track. Be aware of your voice. Finally, you will want to work to insert your own voice into the topic, as this is going to be a key part of what draws your regular readers to your blog. Every writer has a unique voice, a one-of-a-kind perspective on the world that comes through in their word choice and their phrasing. In an extremely competitive online environment, properly honing your tone can be the difference between being an authority and being just another faceless expert. After all, at the end of the day, you are what is going to set your content apart from the competition, which means you are going to want to do everything in your power to be as compelling and unique as possible. If you haven't yet developed your own unique voice, the best place to start is going to be making a list of all of the words that you think others would use to describe you. From there, you will want to consider each of these words and consider ways you could potentially ensure this characteristic comes through in your writing. Another good place to look for inspiration is in any unique pattern of speech you may have. These can be difficult to pick out for yourself, so you may want to reach out to your friends and family to help sort things out. These sorts of things can be expressed in the way you structure your sentences, how paragraphs are arranged, and by varying sentence length, just to name a few. Don't beat yourself up if you can't find too many ways to spruce up your writing just yet. They will naturally emerge with time. Indeed, it is far better to start off a little milquetoast and let your voice emerge over time than it is to put on the written equivalent of a false accent. Forcing a unique voice is only going to limit your ability to let your voice develop naturally and possibly even paint yourself into a corner, as if you try and replace it with something natural later on, you risk alienating your existing readers who have gotten used to what they believe to be the real you. Share what you are reading. Another great way to build up the idea that you are an authority in your field is to share what you have been reading. You are taking all of this time learning about the ins and outs of your portion of your niche. You may as well brag a little, as it will only make readers think more of you, as dropping a list of names they have never heard of will help cement the idea that you really know what you're talking about. Before you share the sources of the information you're iterating upon, it is important to vet them thoroughly to ensure everything is as valid as it first appears. Especially early on, you don't want to accidentally stumble upon a so-called expert that is really a charlatan the community as a whole dismissed years ago. Specifically, this means understanding just who created any and all content you plan on referencing, along with their general level of authority within the niche as a whole. If you pick a source that is reliable, then you can guarantee that it will be easy to verify, while also helping you to ensure you aren't accidentally opening a well-known can of worms within the niche community. While this will certainly take some work, if doing so ends up saving your burgeoning career as an authority within your niche, then it will be well worth it. Spread the word. Once you have learned everything there is to know about your section of the niche, the next step is going to be spread the word of your accomplishment to anyone who would listen. For starters, this means taking up residence on the forums of other niche-related sites that you know your target audience is likely to visit. Don't forget the subreddit for the niche in question, as this is likely an extremely popular place for members of the niche to go in order to discuss high-level aspects of the niche, as well as funny stories and memes, which, when referenced later on, can help make you really seem to know what you're talking about. When spending time on these sites, you're going to want to really do everything in your power to come off as the dyed-in-the-wool fan of the niche from way back. Start conversations, answer questions, generally do anything you can do in order to ensure that people are aware of your presence. Another key step at this time will be ensuring that you include a link to your blog within every one of your posts, crediting the site with the information you are putting forth. Your goal here should be to eventually get to a point where those in your target audience have a hard time doing anything without seeing your name and the name of your blog associated with the niche in question. During this period, none of the content you post should be designed with marketing or sales in mind. That part comes later. Instead, you should be focused exclusively on community outreach and building up your personal brand as much as possible through a grassroots movement devoted to how much of an authority you are. When working through this part of the process, you can certainly answer base-level questions regarding your niche, but generally speaking, you'll want to stick to high-level discussions whenever possible. Each post you create during this time should be seen as an opportunity to show off just how knowledgeable you are, which means that you will need to go above and beyond what most members of the target audience are going to know by simply being associated with the niche. Only by taking the conversation in new directions will people remember your name after reading your post. Once you get the feeling that your name is already on the lips of members of your niche, the next thing you will need to do is take your status a step further and reach out to other experts in your niche and start building relationships with them on a peer-to-peer level. As two experts in a given niche who both run blogs on the topic, you should naturally have plenty to talk about, at least enough to establish a professional relationship with one another. Once this relationship is on solid footing, you will then want to put forth an offer to write a guest blog for them at some point when they have a blog fall through or when their schedule doesn't permit traditional posting for one reason or another. As you already know, creating quality content day in and day out can be exhausting, and it likely won't be long before the other expert takes you up on your offer. While helping the competition might seem counterproductive at first, the fact of the matter is that you will get far more from the process than the effort you will put in. For starters, it will get your name out in front of an entirely different audience than the one you have already cultivated, which means you are virtually guaranteed to score a few conversions based on that fact alone. More importantly, however, it establishes you as someone that the other expert trusts and respects, which is often enough for their followers to treat you with that same level of respect, improving your authority in the process. While getting this to work with one fellow expert is useful, it won't be enough to promote the idea that you are a new authority in the niche. For that level of recognition, you're going to need to reach out to the other experts in your niche, even seeking out larger sites and those that are your direct competition. Once your name can be seen on virtually every site associated with the niche, not just on the forums, but on the blog itself, then it will look like they are all deferring to you, which will give you the appearance of an authority in no time flat. With that level of deference from the experts in the niche, it will only be natural that people start giving you the level of authority that you are looking for. Your goal in these instances is not so much to create singular conversions, though that is always nice. Rather, you want to create followers who believe that you are the end-all and be-all when it comes to authority in your niche or sub-niche. While conversions are certainly going to line your pockets, followers are going to be the regular readers that will go out of their way to tell everyone they know about how great you are, hopefully convincing them to check out your content in the process, creating a more pronounced and reliable cash flow in the process. Even if they never actually purchase anything themselves, good followers are worth their weight in gold, sometimes literally, and should always be treated with the utmost care and respect. Write a book. A great way to both cap off everything you have learned while also generating an additional revenue stream or value add. Turning your previous study guide into a full-fledged book will give you something for your followers to point to when it comes to your qualifications. After all, you will have written the book on the topic. Indeed, by this point, you should be knowledgeable enough to put together 15 to 20,000 words on the topic without issue. While this might seem intimidating at first, if you think about it as writing between 30 and 40 blogs, the task seems much more manageable. What's more, you can instead pass off your study guide to a ghostwriter and have them put together a book for you that will only cost around $1 per 100 words. This means that a 20,000 word book would only cost you about $200 if you seek out your own writer on a site like Upwork.com. You can then use a graphic designer to format your book and create the cover for around $150. Finally, you can post your book to the Kindle marketplace for free, securing your spot in the online pantheon of published writers for less than $400. Once the book is available on Amazon, you'll want to be sure to include a link to it prominently on your site before then giving it away to anyone who wants to join your email newsletter or complete some other additional onboarding task. It is literally a no-lose situation. Chapter 4. Generating Content Ideas. Content Generation Exercise. To get your mental juices flowing, you're going to want to think back to the content baskets that you already established are relevant to your blog. From there, take the category that you feel most comfortable writing about, and then ask yourself what the reader needs to know in order to be well-versed in each category. Don't stop until you have 6 different subcategories for it. Finally, take each subcategory and don't stop there. You don't need to come up with clean copy at this point, nor should you overthink it. Just write down the first 6 ideas that come to mind. This exercise is just to show how effective a little bit of brainstorming can be when it comes to creating plenty of quality content. Above all, it is important to let your ideas flow and not waste time in the moment fine-tuning every single idea that comes into your head when all you're trying to do is come up with as many different potential ideas as possible. This is where what is known as a swipe file will especially come in handy. A swipe file is a type of file that is filled with ideas that serve to inspire you, as well as those that you would like to explore more fully at a later date. If you aren't already keeping a file like this for your blog posts ideas, then you should start ASAP. The swipe file you choose to keep can be an app, physical file, or even an email draft. The type of file doesn't matter as much as the fact that you use it on a regular basis, and it keeps all of your various thoughts organized so you can go back to them at a later point in time. To be clear, this shouldn't be a file for any and all of your stray thoughts. It should only be for those that you feel can be fleshed out to fully support your niche and your target audience on your goal towards being seen as an authority in your field. Great places to look for content ideas. Pinterest. Pinterest is an extremely popular medium that is full of unique and interesting things that its members find throughout the internet. It is especially useful for your purposes in this instance, as when you come across a pin that seems as though it could suit your purposes, you can simply pin it to your own secret board that you can then refer back to whenever you are in full-on content generate mode. Just be sure that the board you set up really is secret, as you don't want to spoil the surprise for your viewers. Facebook groups. Despite its flaws, Facebook is still the most used social network in the world, which naturally means it is going to be filled to bursting with potentially interesting content ideas. You don't have to stick to the things that people you know are posting either. You can find Facebook groups dedicated to your niche and then search them specifically through the Search This Group functionality to easily see what they are talking about at the moment, what problems they have, and what questions about the niche keep coming up time and again. BuzzSumo. This is a useful tool that can be used to search a specific domain to see what the most frequently shared content is on that site. If you turn it to the websites of your competition, then you can see what their readers are responding to most frequently so that you can put your own spin on it. It will also give you a sampling of the comments that are being left, allowing you to pick up on questions that the original content generated and ensure your version improves upon the core concept in question. Podcasts. If you haven't already started listening to podcasts associated with your niche, there is no time like the present. When you come across episodes that discuss content that you think you can put a unique spin on, be sure to check out that episode's show notes to see what additional details are included, as well as what the community's response seems to be, as that can help you find an angle for further discussion as well. Answer the People. This handy tool aggregates search results from all the major search engines to determine what questions are being asked related to any keyword or phrase entered. Answering questions related to your niche is a great way to create reams of useful content while also showing off your authority on the topic as well. Uber Suggest. This tool provides you with an additional list of potential keywords of phrases based on the word or phrase you entered. While this won't always lead to the most productive results, it can lead you in directions that you had previously not considered, with plenty of potentially untapped blog ideas as along for the right. Providing your own take. While there is certainly nothing wrong with taking an idea that your competition put forth first and repackaging it in a new way, it is important that you simply aren't taking their take on the topic and rewriting it in your own style. Not only is this tacky, it will hurt the idea that you are an authority in the eyes of readers who see both versions of the content. As such, before you take on a topic that a competitor has recently covered, ask yourself the following questions. How will you add to the conversation? If you think of the blogs that comprise the content for your niche as having a conversation with one another, then writing a piece that is in the same vein as something someone else wrote is completely acceptable and even encouraged. The key words here are adding to, however, which means that you definitely need to have something legitimate to add to the conversation in order to go down this route. Generally speaking, you can assume you are on the right track if you plan on taking a viewpoint that a majority of the has avoided, or if you come at the issue from an underserved perspective or angle that has thus far been ignored. If you feel the provided content is not telling the complete story, or is leaving out other useful information, then you are in the clear as well. Building content around relative topics. Aside from marketing content, content that helps your reader to better understand your facet of the niche is going to likely be one of the most common types of posts you create. Now, as the average blog post length is only around 500 words, splitting a category of content down into subcategories can provide you with a roadmap of various blog posts you can write in order to provide the full story. Not only does this approach leave you with plenty of content ideas, it ensures that readers are more likely to return to your site as there are multiple parts in each series. Some subcategories are also going to be able to be broken down into numerous different topics, and others will only cover a single post. Your goal should be to find the greatest number of posts per content category as possible without feeling as though you are simply filling space. On the other hand, you have every right to describe the category in full detail, and indeed, that's what your readers are expecting, so you don't want to be too concise either. Types of users to work around. The readers you are going to be dealing with will typically fall into one of 5 categories. Understanding these categories will naturally make it easier for you to create content that is better targeted and thus more effective for each. Those unfamiliar with the problem. The first group of readers are those for whom you will have to do the most work in order to generate a conversion, as they are completely unfamiliar with the problem that you are looking to solve. This means they're going to need to be made aware of the problem that needs to be solved and convinced that this previously unknown problem is something they should care about before you can even start to think about a conversion. When it comes to dealing with these types of readers, you will find that pointing out the issues that the problem might be causing them is a far more effective way of getting them to pay attention to your pitch than starting with a list of benefits, unless those benefits are easy money, sexual impotence, or hair loss. Common types of posts that attract these types of readers include things like X things you didn't know about Y, why you need to stop doing X right now, why X is bad and how to improve it, X common mistakes regarding Y and how to fix them, X reasons your why is doomed to fail. Slightly tuned-in reader. This type of reader is likely going to get the most benefit from your site and fairly likely to give you some money, though it might not be for quite some time. This category of reader was recently made aware of the problem that your niche is geared towards solving, though they don't know all that much about it yet, and they have decided that you seem trustworthy enough to at least keep listening to what you have to say. The types of posts that are going to appeal to these types of readers are going to be those that are attention-grabbing yet less aggressive than those for the previous reader type. For example, X simple ways to improve Y. 1 easy trick to make Y a breeze. X classic options for Y that still work today. How to make a plan to do X and follow through. A skill every person interested in X needs to know. The on-the-fence reader. This reader is a bit of a conundrum as they are already on board with you as an individual and also whatever problems you are helping to solve in your niche, but for whatever reason they still aren't willing to put down any money on their new convictions. The best way to get these types of readers to take the next step is to show them examples of other people who have already pulled the trigger and are super happy that they did so. Case studies are a great example of this, as are posts that call out converted readers who have sent in their positive results. Headlines for this type of content would include things like, X things you need to know about affiliate product Y before you buy. Real users respond to the newest affiliate product X. X reasons the pros are switching to affiliate product Y. Readers who are almost there. These are going to be readers who are picking up what you are putting down. They just have a few more questions before they take the plunge. It is for these readers that FAQ pages exist, as well as forums where users can ask and answer questions for one another. Depending on your personal situation, a live chat function can also be extremely effective when it comes to pushing these folks over the edge into conversion territory. Readers who have purchased and are looking for more. For these types of readers, it is especially useful to have onboarding details in place, typically in order to add them to a mailing list or at least update them with deals and new products. These types of readers are literally already in your pocket, which means all you need to do is give them the slightest nudge in order to turn them into repeat conversions. Not setting up a system to take advantage of these types of readers is akin to leaving money on the table. What they all have in common. While each of these types of readers have different goals and motivations, they all have one thing in common, and that is the fact that they need something extra from you before they can move forward. As such, it is this question that you need to consider when you are creating content targeted at one of the 5 groups. By staying ahead of your potential conversions and needs, you'll find that the path to purchase becomes much shorter across the board. Goal-based content. Another way to reliably come up with content is to determine your goals first, and then look at potential content ideas with those goals in mind. These goals shouldn't just be vague aims at improving core functionality, number of followers, or what have you. They need to be extremely specific in order to be effective. For example, when you are first starting out, your goals could be something like earning $500 from your site, reach 500 subscribers to your email list, or increase the rate of shares your content receives by 50%. When you set about creating content that is going to tie directly into your goals, everything that you create is naturally going to be more effective, as it will have a clear purpose which will direct the writing, making it more compelling as a result. The state of your blog at the moment, along with your individual goals, are going to then dramatically affect the type of content you choose to create. But as long as you go about doing so in premeditated, self-directed fashion, you will be on the right track. Useful blog post categories. Adversarial. Adversarial posts are perfect if you are looking to establish your authority in your niche because it demonstrates a degree of leadership while also highlighting a widely held misconception within your niche. These posts should naturally be opinionated, though obviously you'll want to back all of your opinions up with facts from trust sources. It is important to approach these types of posts with the goal and tone of one who is interested in educating those who are misinformed, not rub their noses in the fact that they were misinformed. Another approach for these types of posts is stating something that is directly contrary to popular beliefs or practices in your niche. Sample headlines for this type of content would include X common misconceptions about Y, X niche-related myths that could end up costing you money, X things the best tier of individuals in your niche don't want you to know. Guides. Creating detailed guides for those just getting into a niche or for those looking to take things to the next level is a great way to create evergreen content with few sales opportunities that will continue generating paid views and revenue indefinitely. What's more, to those who read these guides, you will be the natural authority in the niche, simply because yours is the only name they know. So it is really a win-win scenario. When titling these types of posts, you will want to tap into the positive character traits that your niche is associated with to pull in the types of people you are describing. Sample headlines for this type of content would include the Ultimate Niche Member Guide, the Underground Guide, the Successful Startup Guide, the True Guide for members of the niche. Correct a mistake. These types of blogs are great if your niche provides extra focus on something that most people already do to one extent or another, like cooking, using electronic devices, or exercise. While headlines in this vein can be extremely effective, it is equally important to have the promised details to back it up, or risk building a negative reputation with the very people you're looking to court. Sample headlines for this type of content would include, "You are doing X wrong. Stop doing X right away. What doing X is costing you. X reasons your niche-related idea will fail." Trends. Writing about trends is one of the easiest ways to work affiliate marketing posts into your regular content lineup. It doesn't matter what side of the trend you land on personally. You can create plenty of content that is for or against a specific trend, while at the same time including an alternative you are getting paid to plug in the process. If you keep your ear to the ground and don't mind the occasional post that comes together at the last second, then you can create posts regarding trends that are currently burning up the cultural zeitgeist, for today at least, and potentially increase your page views dramatically in the process. Don't forget, people are going to be more inclined to be on your side and continue interacting with your content if you actively solve a specific problem or need. And each new trend is virtually guaranteed to come with its own set of problems and needs, so there should always be a new round of content coming up from somewhere, as long as you keep a lookout for it. Sample headlines for this type of content would include, X reasons why now is the perfect time to jump on some trend. X things to consider before jumping on this new trend. What you can expect to see from this new trend over the next X years. Content Roundup. A content roundup post is essentially a curated list of links to blog posts from numerous other websites in your niche and around the web in general. Depending on the topic, you may also want to include quotes from prominent members of the niche community to boost your page views even more. This is not to say all you have to do is round up the things you like, as even if you attribute them properly, you will want to ensure that you get permission from everyone involved before the post goes live. Failing to follow up on this step has the potential to see you blacklisted from your niche for plagiarism, and most bloggers will appreciate the extra publicity, so it should not be difficult to get the required permissions beforehand. Sample headlines for this type of content would include X opinions on the current niche topic, the X best tips from the experts on niche topic, how the pros handle this issue niche people know about. Case studies. Case studies tend to be blog posts that are longer than average, which are perfect when you are looking for a way to create a need for your specific call to action. A case study typically takes a deep dive into a particular topic to show a wide range of possible outcomes, both good and bad. If you have the data that shows how effective methods or products you are promoting have been over a prolonged period of time or for a large number of people, then a case study is likely a good choice. At the end of your case study, make sure that you include a few paragraphs that outline the takeaways for the reader, including how they can apply your results to themselves. Sample headlines for this type of content would include, "You won't believe what happened to X people after they tried Y. X studies agree that Y is better than expected." Personal failures. Writing about your personal failures in relation to the niche and the ways some product or service turned your experience around will help humanize you to your audience while also increasing conversions at the same time. This is your chance to tell your readers about an opportunity you missed, either real or imagined, and provide them with the tools they need to ensure they don't make your same mistake. Generate a year's worth of content. Now that you have a better understanding of all the different types of content that are out there for you to use, the last thing you need to do is create enough content ideas to last you a year. Now, assuming you post 5 pieces of content per week every week for a full year, this means you need 260 ideas. Luckily, if you go back to your original 8 baskets full of content and break each down into 6 subcategories and break each of those down into 6 blog topics, then you'll end up with 288 topics to choose from. As you already have your practice basket ready to go, that only leaves 252 additional topics to discover. While this might seem like a tall order at first, when you blaze through the first set in less than 10 minutes, you'll realize how much you have already learned about content generation and also how much you have learned about your niche along the way. The reason this strategy is so effective is the same reason that preparing all your dinners for the week at once is faster than prepping each meal individually. Repetition in bulk is always faster than when it is spread out over a longer period of time. Assuming you have followed all the suggestions up until this point, there is no reason you shouldn't be able to fill out your content list for the entire year in about an hour. Chapter 5. The Full Package. Now that you have an understanding of the type of content that you are looking for, as well as a general idea when it comes to how to come up with content to fill your blog with on the fly, not to mention plenty of great ideas stored in the bank. Nevertheless, you can only truly count on success if you guarantee that your content can do 3 things reliably: convert your readers, attract your readers, and delight your readers. Once you become adept at adding these elements to your content plan, you'll find yourself with a fully functioning content strategy for your blog. Creating a voice for your brand. Regardless of the purpose of your blog, if you have your own website, then you already have your own brand, which means you need to be prepared to put in the time and effort required to ensure it prospers. A big part of this is going to be the brand voice or tone your blog posts use when you are speaking to your target audience. While you may not realize it yet, the style, tone, and words you use in your writing are going to say quite a bit about your brand, which is why it is so important to ensure that you curate the brand voice you use very carefully for the best results. It is also important to be very consistent across all of your posts with the same brand voice to avoid appearing wishy-washy and turning off readers by accident. What's worse, if you aren't careful, your brand tone might attract different segments of the population, confusing your target audience and making it difficult to focus on those who are going to be the easiest conversions. In addition to not sounding inconsistent, it is important that you don't simply copy the tone of another member of your niche whole cloth. Depending on your niche, there is likely to be some overlap, of course, especially if members of the niche typically use lots of slang or jargon. And if this is the case, then you will need to work even harder to separate yourself from the crowd using any means necessary. This does not mean that you should adopt a tone that doesn't reflect who you are personally, but only if you aren't able to keep it up indefinitely. There is nothing wrong with creating a persona to represent you on your blog, and indeed there are many benefits to doing so, especially if you don't fit into your own target audience naturally. If you're having trouble coming up with the perfect voice, there are a few different things you can do in order to get the ball rolling. Look to the past. Depending on how long you've been blogging for at this point, you may have already developed a tone for your brand without realizing it, as these things do tend to manifest themselves over time. If you have been at it a while, then you may have developed a tone for your brand that you aren't aware of because it has happened slowly, which is why you'll want to go back and look at your early work before comparing it to a more modern iteration. What you're going to want to keep an eye out for are things like stylistic flourishes and tonal shifts in the later work that was not present in the earlier example. If you're looking to build up your personal tone a little more, you can instead look back through your previous writing for examples of things that you feel came out exceptionally well and gather them all together in one place. You will then want to read through them and look for places where the tone is similar and consider why this is the case. With enough studying, you should be able to replicate what you have found. After all, you wrote it originally. Above all else, you're going to want to banish anything from your writing that feels as though it could be written by someone else. Remember, you are your own biggest selling point, which means you're going to want to do everything in your power to promote that fact as fully as possible. Look at the brand critically. The next thing you're going to want to do is to take a look at your brand as you have currently established it and determine what words someone else would use to describe it. If you like what you see, then great. Otherwise, you'll want to go back to the drawing board and come up with new terms, as there is no better time to start changing the perception of your brand like the present. If you already have a dedicated user base of some shape or size, look through their emails and comments to see what words they use to describe you, and ensure you aren't going in a direction that will alienate your core readers. Regardless, you are going to want to make a list of around a dozen words that accurately describe, or hopefully describe, your brand. Of all the words you choose, you're going to want to pick no more than 3 to focus on, as anything more than that will dilute the efficacy of this exercise. You will then want to make a list of all the ways you can think of to express those qualities through your writing. While some will obviously be easier to express in text than others, you're going to want to stick with it, as if you make every post an expression of your brand, you are reinforcing its quality as well. Once you know what your big 3 are, the next thing you'll want to do is come up with their opposites to determine the 3 things that your brand definitely isn't. These should limit the extent of the first set to provide you with a general set of parameters that you can work with moving forward to give you a well-defined space to work with moving forward. For example, your words could be witty, warm, and whimsical, all fine choices. On the other side of the coin, you could say your brand is witty but not caustic, warm but not a pushover, and whimsical but not foolish. If your words alone aren't quite enough to get you where you need to be, you can write out the 3 phrases you came up with and elaborate on what this will mean in your writing, both in terms of what you will do and in terms of what you will never do. This is also a great time to brainstorm how you're going to go about expressing it through your writing, using a personalized style that should set you apart from your peers in your niche as much as anything else. This could include things like certain stylized or expressive phrases, emojis, or breaking standard conventions. Chapter 6. Keep your readers hooked. There are more than 1 billion new pieces of content posted online every single day, which means you already need to do quite a bit of work in order to break through the noise. Even when you break it down to details about your specific niche, or even subsection of your niche that you are an authority in, you can safely assume that your potential readers are being pulled in at least 100 different directions at any given time. The end result of this deluge of content is that the blog posts you create can be some of the best around, positively dripping with value, and funny to boot, and still not get the level of readership and shares that you know it deserves. In order to break past the interest barrier, you are going to need to do even more, starting with taking a closer look at the way your blog posts are structured. Improve your headlines. If you aren't putting serious thought and effort into your headlines, then you're selling yourself short right off the bat. It alone is often enough to determine if a reader is going to click or not, and will single-handedly determine if a social media share is going to yield positive results. First things first, you want a headline that is clear and to the point. If you can be funny or clever and still remain clear, think of it as a bonus, not a requirement. Your headline should also strive to be as specific as possible, as things like percentages, days, hours, minutes, and other numbers all promise something concrete in exchange for the reader's time, as well as a concrete variable to plug into the cost-benefit analysis that will be performed before any action is taken. Additionally, you should try and appeal to a particular emotion or the fear of missing out. Great emotions to aim for include happiness, a desire to be loved, anger, and fear. Finally, you are always going to want to include at least one keyword or phrase in your headline, as otherwise it would be difficult for anyone to actually find it. Check your hook. The introduction of each of your blog posts should come complete with a clear hook that gives the reader a reason to continue, despite the literal thousands of other things they could be doing with their time. One type of popular hook is the direct question. Asking your reader a direct question right off the bat forces them to engage with your content directly, improving completion rates right off the bat. The only downside is if the reader answers incorrectly for whatever reason, then you have likely lost them, which is why you want to keep your questions have predictable answers. For example, do you feel as though there aren't enough hours in the day? This question is ideal, as it takes an issue that virtually everyone experiences and allows the reader to fill in their own reasons as to why that might be the case. While your reasoning and their might not mesh all the way, you have already gotten them to keep reading without any false promises, which are the main goal of a good hook. Another great way to ensure that people keep reading is by including a statistic that is too shocking not to follow up on. While strictly speaking, the statistics that you come up with don't have to be true. In fact, 54% of all statistics are made up on the spot, but they do need to be difficult to verify if you're going to use a hyperbolic statistic to prove a point, as if your reader does the legwork to check and finds out you were dramatically incorrect, then their faith in you might waver. Finally, if you can create a sense of urgency in the introduction by creating a cliffhanger, then you can string the reader along throughout the blog post, doling out the promised information in small doses as time goes on. This is an especially effective way to start a series of connected blog posts, as it will dramatically increase the odds that more readers make it all the way through to the very end. For example, something like, "The secret to happiness can be found in this blog post. You just have to look for it." Of course, with something like that, you better have a real payoff by the end of the post, or you will risk dealing with some very angry readers who likely won't be fooled a second time, regardless of what the headline promises. Consider body formatting. Formatting the body of your post is going to go a long way towards improving the odds of anyone actually making it through to the end. Remember, these days more than 80% of blog content is consumed on a smart device, which means that if you aren't taking mobile reading habits into consideration, then you are likely missing out on a huge segment of the market. First things first, this means using more subheadings and smaller paragraphs to break content into smaller, more manageable chunks. Nothing turns a mobile reader off from a blog post more quickly than a hug wall of unmitigated text. The greater the amount of white space they can see from the start, the more likely they are to actually start reading. Additionally, you're going to want to include recaps at key points in longer posts, as well as plenty of properly formatted pictures. Additionally, you're going to want to make a point of talking to the reader directly, while at the same time leaving yourself out of the conversation in most instances. Generally speaking, this means you'll want to emphasize the use of the word you, while never using we, and only using I when you are telling a story from your personal experience for a very specific reason. Writing with you will also help to focus the reader and ensure they are engaged throughout the blog post, because they feel as though they are being targeted directly. Writing with you shows the reader that you care about them as a person and helps to cement their trust in you. Try trigger words. While the goal is obviously to create truly compelling copy, this is something that can be much easier said than done, which is why you're going to want to include trigger words every few sentences in your blog in order to help guide the reader through the entire process of reading the blog from start to finish. Trigger words include PS, postscript, worse, if, discover, easy, want, everyone, Today, instantly. How? Stop. When? Yes. Shake up expectations. A great way of shaking up expectations early in a blog post is to use contractions to simulate as though you're having a real conversation with another person. Many blog writers take on a more formal tone traditionally seen in textbooks, which makes them seem more distant than they no doubt intended. Breaking this trend will immediately ingratiate you to a certain segment of the population, ensuring they're along for the ride regardless of what your blog post might actually be about. Asking unexpected or irrelevant questions is also a good way to subvert expectations and trick those on the fence to reading longer than they otherwise would, just to try and figure out what is actually going on. Prove your facts. While you may eventually be able to get away with discussing little-known facts without citing sources because your readers trust you, early on, you'll find that including relevant links to your sources throughout your content will help to establish your authority by showing not only that you are trustworthy, but that you can be counted on to seek out the facts no matter what. While this will certainly make it take longer for you to create each of your posts, the end results will be more than worth it. Cater to scanners. According to recent studies, the average person only spends about 20 seconds on any blog post they come across. This is the articles they are actually interested in, remember, not those that they clicked on by accident or due to clickbait. As such, you're going to want to set up your posts so that the first few and final sentences contain the bulk of the relevant details, compacted of course, while things like subheadings and bullet points help to create an overall picture of what you're going for without requiring a full commitment, which you can't expect from most users. Conclusion. A good conclusion will both inspire the reader and hopefully cause them to choose to take a specific action moving forward. Your conclusion should always include a specific request for shares, likes, or follows, as well as suggested additional reading and a brief explanation of anything major you have going on. This is the best chance to get people to move on to more of your content. Do yourself a favor and don't waste it.